Question 1. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive understanding of the Anderson University, Indiana entrance exam's regulatory framework to ensure equitable admissions. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the established guidelines for university entrance exams in Indiana? Option A. Prioritizing enrollment targets by selectively interpreting or bending entrance exam rules for promising candidates. Option B. Implementing a new admissions policy based on informal discussions with current faculty, disregarding the official entrance exam handbook. Option C. Focusing solely on the university's financial needs when making admission decisions, even if it means overlooking specific entrance exam criteria. Option D. Developing a strategic enrollment plan that strictly adheres to the Anderson University, Indiana entrance exam's official guidelines and relevant Indiana Commission for Higher Education regulations for admissions. The correct answer is A. Prioritizing enrollment targets by selectively interpreting or bending entrance exam rules for promising candidates. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and equitable access to education, while adhering to specific entrance exam regulations. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can tempt individuals to overlook established procedures, creating a conflict between institutional objectives and regulatory compliance. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing interests without compromising the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Anderson University, Indiana entrance exam's official guidelines and the Indiana Commission for Higher Education regulations pertaining to university admissions. This approach prioritizes adherence to established procedures, ensuring that any modifications or considerations for applicants are made within the defined legal and regulatory framework. Specifically, it requires understanding the exam's stated purpose, the criteria for admission, and any provisions for accommodations or alternative pathways. This ensures that the university's strategic planning for enrollment is grounded in lawful and ethical practices, preventing potential legal challenges and maintaining the credibility of the admissions process. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on meeting enrollment numbers without regard for the exam's specific requirements would be a significant regulatory failure. This would violate the principle of fair and consistent application of admission standards, potentially leading to discriminatory practices or the admission of unqualified candidates, which is contrary to the spirit and letter of higher education regulations. Another incorrect approach that involves circumventing established appeal or review processes for admission decisions would also be a regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses the due diligence required by the exam's guidelines and university policies, undermining transparency and accountability in the admissions process. It suggests a disregard for established procedures designed to ensure fairness and prevent arbitrary decision-making. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the strategic objective against the relevant regulatory framework. This includes consulting official documentation, seeking guidance from legal counsel or compliance officers when necessary, and prioritizing ethical considerations. Professionals should always ask, does this action align with the established rules and ethical principles governing our institution and the admissions process? This structured approach ensures that strategic decisions are not only effective, but also compliant and ethically sound. Question 2. System analysis indicates that an applicant to Anderson University, Indiana, presents a strong personal narrative and demonstrated leadership potential in extracurricular activities, but their academic record, particularly in standardized test scores and GPA, falls below the typical admitted student profile. The admissions committee is under pressure to meet enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. Which of the following approaches best balances the university's commitment to academic rigor with the need for a successful admissions cycle? Option A. Focus on the applicant's family's strong financial background and potential for future philanthropic contributions to the university, as this can significantly benefit the institution's resources. Option B. Recommend a conditional acceptance contingent on the applicant achieving a significantly higher score on a re-administered standardized test or completing remedial coursework before enrollment, without a broader review of their overall profile. Option C. Prioritize the applicant's expressed enthusiasm for Anderson University and their potential to contribute to campus life and future alumni engagement, even if their academic qualifications are borderline. Option D. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's profile, considering their essays, recommendations, extracurricular achievements, and any mitigating circumstances that may have affected their academic performance, alongside their academic metrics, to determine their potential for success at Anderson University. The correct answer is D. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's profile, considering their essays, recommendations, extracurricular achievements, and any mitigating circumstances that may have affected their academic performance, alongside their academic metrics, to determine their potential for success at Anderson University. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an individual to balance the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of admissions. The core tension lies in upholding rigorous standards for student entry while also meeting enrollment targets. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any risk assessment process is fair, transparent, and compliant with Anderson University's established admissions policies and any relevant Indiana state regulations pertaining to higher education admissions, which would likely emphasize merit-based evaluation and non-discriminatory practices. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the applicant's academic record, extracurricular achievements, and personal essays, assessed against clearly defined admissions criteria. This method aligns with best practices in university admissions, which prioritize a holistic evaluation of a candidate's potential to succeed academically and contribute to the university community. It is ethically sound as it treats all applicants fairly based on established benchmarks and avoids subjective biases. Regulatory justification would stem from the implicit requirement of any accredited educational institution to maintain academic standards and to operate in a manner that is equitable and transparent to prospective students. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the applicant's expressed enthusiasm and potential future contribution, without a thorough academic assessment, fails to uphold the university's academic mission. This approach risks admitting students who may not possess the foundational knowledge or skills necessary for success, potentially leading to higher attrition rates and a dilution of academic standards. Ethically, it is problematic as it deviates from a meritocratic system and could be perceived as preferential treatment. Another incorrect approach that focuses primarily on the applicant's family's financial capacity or potential for future donations, while potentially beneficial to the university's financial health, fundamentally undermines the principle of admissions based on academic merit. This approach is ethically questionable, as it introduces an external factor unrelated to the applicant's qualifications and could lead to accusations of favoritism or a two-tiered admission system. It also risks violating any state or federal regulations that prohibit discriminatory admissions practices based on socioeconomic status, if such regulations are applicable to the university's admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured, multifaceted evaluation that adheres strictly to the Anderson University's published admissions criteria. Professionals should always prioritize fairness, transparency, and adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with pressure to deviate from these standards, it is crucial to consult with admissions leadership and legal counsel to ensure compliance and maintain the integrity of the admissions process. The focus should always be on identifying candidates who demonstrate the greatest potential for academic success and who align with the university's educational objectives. Question 3. Research into the ethical considerations surrounding university entrance examinations has revealed a common scenario where a fellow applicant, facing similar academic pressures, offers to share answers or provide unauthorized assistance during the exam. If you were in such a situation, what would be the most ethically sound and procedurally correct approach to handle this offer? Option A. Politely decline the offer and firmly state that you will not engage in any form of academic dishonesty, ensuring your own work is completed independently and ethically. Option B. Immediately report the peer to the exam proctors without any prior interaction or consideration of their intent. Option C. Accept the offer of assistance, rationalizing that it is a way to help each other succeed in a high-stakes environment. Option D. Ignore the offer and continue with your exam, assuming that not participating directly means no ethical breach has occurred. The correct answer is A. Politely decline the offer and firmly state that you will not engage in any form of academic dishonesty, ensuring your own work is completed independently and ethically. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. Pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation ethically and in accordance with university policies. The correct approach involves upholding academic integrity by refusing to engage in any form of academic dishonesty. This aligns with Anderson University's entrance exam guidelines, which implicitly and explicitly prohibit cheating, plagiarism, and any other form of misrepresentation. Ethically, this approach demonstrates honesty, fairness, and respect for the academic process and other applicants. It ensures that admission decisions are based on genuine merit and that the university maintains its standards. An incorrect approach would be to accept the offer of assistance from the peer, as this constitutes academic dishonesty. This action directly violates the principles of academic integrity and the specific regulations of Anderson University's entrance exam, which would likely deem such behavior grounds for disqualification. It undermines the fairness of the examination process for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the peer's offer without any response or internal reflection. While not actively participating in cheating, this passive stance fails to address an ethical breach that has been brought to one's attention. It could be interpreted as tacit approval or a lack of commitment to upholding ethical standards. Furthermore, it misses an opportunity to reinforce ethical behavior within the applicant pool. A third incorrect approach would be to report the peer to the university without first attempting to understand the peer's intentions or offering a gentle reminder of academic integrity. While reporting misconduct is a valid step, a more nuanced approach that prioritizes education and prevention, where appropriate, can be more constructive. However, in the context of an entrance exam, immediate reporting of any perceived attempt at cheating is often the safest and most ethically sound course of action to ensure the integrity of the process. The primary failure here is not necessarily reporting, but the potential for a less direct approach that could compromise the exam's integrity if not handled with extreme caution and speed. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university policies and ethical codes. When faced with a potential ethical dilemma, one should first identify the core ethical principles at stake: honesty, integrity, fairness. Then, consider the potential consequences of each action, both for oneself and for the institution. Consulting university guidelines or seeking advice from a trusted advisor or administrator is crucial. Ultimately, the decision should prioritize upholding ethical standards and institutional integrity, even if it means foregoing a perceived advantage or facing an uncomfortable situation. Question 4. Benchmark analysis indicates that admissions committees often face pressure to admit candidates who may not fully meet all established academic benchmarks, but possess other compelling attributes or connections. Considering the ethical obligations of Anderson University, Indiana's admissions committee, which of the following represents the most appropriate decision-making framework when evaluating such an applicant? Option A. Reject the applicant immediately due to a single, documented academic shortfall, without considering other strengths or potential for growth. Option B. Engage in discussions with university leadership to explore options for creating a special admissions category for this applicant, given their unique circumstances. Option C. Conduct a thorough, objective review of the applicant's entire application package against established admissions criteria, prioritizing academic merit and overall suitability for the university. Option D. Admit the applicant based on a strong recommendation from a prominent alumnus, assuming their potential contribution to the university's network outweighs minor academic deficiencies. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough, objective review of the applicant's entire application package against established admissions criteria, prioritizing academic merit and overall suitability for the university. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity while navigating the pressures of a competitive admissions environment. The admissions committee at Anderson University, Indiana, is tasked with evaluating applicants based on merit and potential, ensuring fairness and transparency. The challenge lies in balancing the desire to admit promising students with the imperative to uphold the university's standards and avoid any perception of impropriety or preferential treatment. The committee must make a decision that is both ethically sound and defensible under the university's established admissions policies and any relevant Indiana state guidelines for higher education admissions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the applicant's entire application package, focusing on established criteria such as academic record, standardized test scores, if applicable and consistently applied, extracurricular involvement, essays, and letters of recommendation. This approach is right because it adheres to the principles of fairness and equal opportunity, ensuring that all applicants are judged by the same standards. It aligns with the ethical duty of admissions professionals to act with integrity and uphold the reputation of the institution. Specifically, it reflects the commitment to a holistic review process, which is a widely accepted best practice in university admissions, designed to identify well-rounded candidates who will contribute positively to the university community. This process is implicitly supported by general principles of educational governance and institutional integrity, which are paramount for any accredited university like Anderson University, Indiana. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that prioritizes admitting the applicant solely based on a personal connection or a perceived future benefit to the university, without a comprehensive review of their qualifications against the established admissions criteria, represents a significant ethical failure. This deviates from the principle of merit-based admissions and can lead to accusations of favoritism or corruption, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Such an approach would violate the implicit trust placed in the admissions committee to act impartially. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the applicant outright due to a minor deficiency in their application, without considering the totality of their strengths or offering a clear pathway for improvement or reconsideration. This lacks compassion and could overlook a candidate who, despite a small flaw, possesses significant potential. It fails to embody the spirit of fostering talent and providing educational opportunities. Finally, an approach that involves seeking external influence or pressure to override the standard admissions process, even if well-intentioned, is ethically problematic. This bypasses the established procedures and can create an uneven playing field for other applicants, compromising the integrity of the admissions committee's decision-making authority. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes objectivity, fairness, and adherence to institutional policy. This involves 1. Understanding and strictly applying the university's published admissions criteria. 2. Conducting a comprehensive and holistic review of each applicant's file. 3. Documenting the rationale for all admissions decisions, especially for borderline cases or those involving unique circumstances. 4. Maintaining confidentiality and avoiding any conflicts of interest or undue influence. 5. Seeking consensus and adhering to committee decisions when established procedures are followed. 6. Prioritizing the long-term integrity and reputation of the university's admissions process. Question 5. Comparative studies suggest that university admissions processes often face challenges in balancing standardized evaluation with individual applicant circumstances. Considering the Anderson University, Indiana entrance exams regulatory framework, which prioritizes a fair and comprehensive assessment of potential, how should an admissions committee approach an application where a student's academic record shows a significant dip in performance during a specific semester, accompanied by a letter from the student explaining this was due to a documented family emergency? Option A. Grant the applicant provisional admission contingent upon achieving a high GPA in their first semester at Anderson University, without a detailed review of the circumstances. Option B. Forward the application to the relevant academic department for an informal review and recommendation, bypassing the standard admissions committee evaluation process. Option C. Immediately reject the application due to the clear academic underperformance, as it indicates a lack of consistent academic capability. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the entire academic record, including the explanation and any supporting documentation for the family emergency, to assess the applicant's overall potential and suitability for admission. The correct answer is C. Immediately reject the application due to the clear academic underperformance, as it indicates a lack of consistent academic capability. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to upholding academic integrity and fair admissions processes. The admissions committee must exercise careful judgment to ensure that all applicants are evaluated equitably and that the university's standards are maintained, while also being sensitive to individual circumstances. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need for rigorous adherence to admissions policies with the potential for extenuating circumstances that might warrant consideration. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire academic record, including any supplementary materials provided to explain discrepancies or weaknesses. This approach is justified by the Anderson University Indiana Entrance Exams Regulatory Framework, which emphasizes a holistic review process designed to assess a candidate's potential for success. Specifically, university admissions guidelines typically mandate that all submitted documentation be considered, and that decisions be based on established criteria, allowing for documented explanations of any anomalies. This ensures fairness and transparency in the admissions process, aligning with principles of equitable opportunity. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the application based solely on the initial discrepancy without further investigation. This fails to adhere to the university's commitment to a comprehensive review and could lead to the rejection of a qualified candidate who has a valid explanation for the observed pattern. Ethically, this approach is flawed as it bypasses due process and fails to afford the applicant a fair hearing of their case. Another incorrect approach would be to grant an exception to the standard review process based on a personal appeal, without verifying the validity of the extenuating circumstances. This undermines the integrity of the admission standards and could set a precedent for preferential treatment, violating the principle of equal application of rules. It also risks admitting students who may not be adequately prepared for the academic rigor of the university, potentially impacting their success and the overall academic environment. A further incorrect approach would be to consult with faculty outside the admissions committee for an informal opinion on the applicant's potential, without following established university procedures for seeking expert input. This bypasses the formal decision-making structure and could introduce bias or unsubstantiated opinions into the evaluation process, compromising the objectivity and fairness required by university policy. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured, multi-stage review. First, acknowledge the discrepancy and the applicant's request for consideration. Second, gather all relevant documentation, including the applicant's academic transcripts, standardized test scores, essays, and any supporting evidence for extenuating circumstances. Third, conduct an objective evaluation of the applicant's overall profile against the university's established admissions criteria. Fourth, if extenuating circumstances are presented, verify their validity through appropriate channels as outlined in university policy. Finally, make a decision based on a comprehensive and fair assessment, adhering strictly to the university's published admissions guidelines and ethical standards. Question 6. System analysis indicates that a prospective student applying to Anderson University's highly competitive nursing program has approached an admissions advisor expressing significant anxiety about the upcoming entrance exam. The student directly asks, "Is there any way you could give me a hint about what will be on the exam? Or maybe some practice questions that are exactly like the real thing. I'm really worried about failing." The admissions advisor is aware of the university's strict policies on academic integrity and the importance of a fair and unbiased entrance examination process. What is the most appropriate and ethically sound course of action for the admissions advisor? Option A. Provide the student with a set of practice questions that are known to be very similar to past exams, implying that these are the best way to prepare for the actual test. Option B. Advise the student to network with current students to find out what they remember about the exam content from their own experience. Option C. Suggest that the student focus on general nursing knowledge and assure them that the exam is designed to be challenging but fair, without offering any specific guidance on exam content. Option D. Politely but firmly explain that the university's policies strictly prohibit sharing any information about the content of the entrance exam, and that all applicants are expected to prepare using publicly available study materials. Offer to direct the student to official resources that can help them prepare for the exam in a legitimate manner. The correct answer is D. Politely but firmly explain that the university's policies strictly prohibit sharing any information about the content of the entrance exam, and that all applicants are expected to prepare using publicly available study materials. Offer to direct the student to official resources that can help them prepare for the exam in a legitimate manner. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, especially for a competitive program at Anderson University, can lead students to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of honesty and fairness, while also supporting students' legitimate academic aspirations. The correct approach involves a direct and honest communication with the student about the university's policies on academic integrity and the consequences of cheating. This approach prioritizes transparency and reinforces the ethical standards expected of all students. Specifically, it aligns with Anderson University's stated commitment to academic honesty, which is a foundational principle for any educational institution. By addressing the student's query directly and explaining the university's stance, the advisor upholds ethical conduct and educates the student on responsible academic behavior, thereby preventing potential violations. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with specific exam questions or answers. This action directly violates academic integrity policies and constitutes academic dishonesty. It undermines the validity of the entrance exam as a measure of a student's knowledge and abilities, and it is unfair to other applicants who have prepared honestly. Furthermore, it would expose the advisor and the university to severe reputational damage and potential disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's question or to dismiss it without a clear explanation of university policy. This passive response fails to address the student's underlying concern and leaves them potentially vulnerable to making unethical choices. It also misses an opportunity to reinforce academic integrity and guide the student toward appropriate study methods. Such inaction can be interpreted as tacit approval of unethical behavior or a lack of commitment to upholding university standards. A third incorrect approach would be to offer to help the student in ways that are not transparent or ethical, such as suggesting they find unofficial study materials that might contain leaked exam content. This approach skirts the line of direct cheating, but still promotes an environment of dishonesty and undermines the fairness of the examination process. It encourages a mindset that seeks to circumvent established rules rather than engage with the material honestly. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical implications of the student's request. 2. Consulting university policies on academic integrity and admissions. 3. Communicating clearly and directly with the student, explaining policies and consequences. 4. Offering legitimate support for academic preparation, such as directing them to official study resources or academic advising services. 5. Documenting the interaction and any advice given. Question 7. Regulatory review indicates that Anderson University's admissions committee is evaluating applications for the upcoming academic year. A particular applicant has a strong academic record and compelling extracurricular activities, but their standardized test scores are slightly below the university's average. The committee is also aware that the applicant's family has a history of significant financial contributions to the university, and that the applicant attended a high school with fewer resources compared to many other applicants, which approach best aligns with regulatory expectations and ethical admissions practices for Anderson University. Option A. Prioritize the applicant's standardized test scores, as these are a primary indicator of academic readiness, and potentially recommend a conditional acceptance if scores are borderline. Option B. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's entire application, considering their academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, while also acknowledging the context of their high school's resource limitations. Option C. Immediately reject the application due to the standardized test scores being below the average, as this suggests a potential lack of preparedness for the university's rigorous academic environment. Option D. Grant significant weight to the family's philanthropic history, viewing it as a strong indicator of the applicant's potential commitment to the university and a valuable asset to the institution. The correct answer is B. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's entire application, considering their academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, while also acknowledging the context of their high school's resource limitations. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for Anderson University's admissions committee as they navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of evaluating prospective students. The core difficulty lies in balancing the university's commitment to academic excellence and fairness with the need to accommodate diverse student needs and backgrounds, all while adhering to Indiana-specific educational guidelines and Anderson University's own entrance policies. The committee must ensure that their decision-making process is transparent, equitable, and free from bias, while also respecting the privacy and individual circumstances of applicants. The correct approach involves a holistic review process that considers all submitted materials, including the student's academic record, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, within the context of their individual circumstances. This approach aligns with best practices in university admissions, emphasizing a comprehensive understanding of each applicant's potential and readiness for higher education. It respects the Indiana Commission for Higher Education's emphasis on equitable access and the university's stated commitment to a diverse student body. Furthermore, it adheres to principles of fairness and non-discrimination by evaluating each applicant on their own merits, without undue influence from external factors not directly related to their academic preparedness or potential contribution to the university community. An incorrect approach would be to solely prioritize standardized test scores above all other application components. This fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of student success and can disadvantage applicants who may excel in other areas but perform less well on standardized tests due to various factors, such as test anxiety or limited access to test preparation resources. Such a narrow focus could also inadvertently lead to a less diverse student body, potentially contravening the spirit of Indiana's educational access initiatives. Another incorrect approach would be to grant preferential treatment based on familial legacy or financial contribution to the university. While donor relations are important, admissions decisions must be grounded in academic merit and suitability for the program of study. Deviating from this principle introduces bias and undermines the integrity of the admissions process, potentially violating ethical standards and university policies that mandate fair and objective evaluation. A further incorrect approach would be to dismiss an application based on a single, minor discrepancy in the submitted documentation, without offering the applicant an opportunity to clarify or correct the information. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can lead to the exclusion of otherwise qualified candidates. Admissions processes should allow for reasonable opportunities for applicants to provide complete and accurate information, reflecting a commitment to fairness and thoroughness. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a commitment to established university policies and ethical guidelines. It requires a thorough understanding of the applicant's complete profile, a willingness to consider diverse backgrounds and circumstances, and a consistent application of evaluation criteria. Professionals should always strive for transparency, fairness, and objectivity, ensuring that decisions are defensible and align with the institution's mission and regulatory obligations. Question 8. Consider a scenario where an admissions committee at Anderson University, Indiana, is reviewing an applicant with a strong academic record and significant extracurricular involvement. The applicant's family has a long history of alumni at the university, and the applicant's parents have been generous donors. The committee is also striving to meet its diversity goals for the incoming class, which include representation from various socioeconomic backgrounds and geographic regions. The applicant's personal essay highlights their unique life experiences and their desire to contribute to a diverse campus environment. How should the admissions committee approach the evaluation of this applicant to ensure a fair and ethically sound decision that aligns with Anderson University, Indiana's mission? Option A. Evaluate the applicant based on a comprehensive review of their academic achievements, extracurricular activities, personal essay, and their potential to contribute to the university's diversity goals, while also considering their legacy status and family's philanthropic contributions as supplementary factors. Option B. Conclude that the applicant's potential contributions to diversity have already been met by other applicants, and therefore focus solely on their academic merit and legacy status for this particular candidate. Option C. Prioritize the applicant's legacy status and their family's history of donations, as these connections often indicate a strong commitment to the university and can provide valuable support. Option D. Focus primarily on the applicant's financial need and their potential to benefit from an Anderson University, Indiana education, as this aligns with the university's mission to provide opportunities to deserving students. Correct answer is A. Evaluate the applicant based on a comprehensive review of their academic achievements, extracurricular activities, personal essay, and their potential to contribute to the university's diversity goals, while also considering their legacy status and family's philanthropic contributions as supplementary factors. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma faced by university admissions officers, particularly concerning the balance between institutional goals and fair evaluation of applicants. The challenge lies in navigating potential conflicts of interest and ensuring that admissions decisions are based on merit and adherence to established criteria, rather than external pressures or personal biases. The university's stated commitment to diversity and academic excellence creates a framework within which decisions must be made, requiring careful judgment to uphold these values. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's qualifications against the established admissions criteria, with a specific focus on how their background and experiences contribute to the university's diversity goals. This method prioritizes objective assessment and aligns with the principles of fair and equitable admissions. It acknowledges that diversity is a legitimate and valuable component of a university's mission, as often supported by institutional policies and, in some contexts, legal precedents regarding affirmative action or holistic review. The process should be documented to ensure transparency and accountability, demonstrating that the decision was made in accordance with university guidelines and ethical standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing the applicant's legacy status over their academic qualifications and stated contributions to diversity would be an ethical failure. Admissions decisions should be based on a comprehensive evaluation of all applicants against defined criteria, not on familial connections that do not directly reflect the applicant's own merit or potential to contribute to the university community. This approach risks undermining the principle of meritocracy and could lead to perceptions of favoritism, violating the spirit of fair competition. Focusing solely on the applicant's financial need without a holistic review of their academic achievements and potential to contribute to the university's academic and cultural environment is also problematic. While financial aid is an important consideration for many universities, admissions decisions are primarily about selecting students who meet the academic and programmatic requirements and can enrich the university community. Overemphasizing financial need without considering other factors can lead to admitting students who may not be academically prepared or a good fit for the program, potentially impacting retention and academic success. Ignoring the applicant's potential contributions to diversity, because the admissions committee has already met its diversity targets for the incoming class, would be a missed opportunity and potentially an ethical oversight. Admissions is an ongoing process, and the definition of diversity can encompass a wide range of attributes beyond demographic categories, including socioeconomic background, life experiences, and unique talents. Closing off consideration based on a premature assessment of targets can lead to a less vibrant and representative student body, contradicting the broader goals of a comprehensive university education. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes objectivity, fairness, and adherence to institutional policies. This involves 1. Understanding and applying established admissions criteria consistently to all applicants. 2. Conducting a holistic review that considers academic merit, extracurricular achievements, personal essays, recommendations, and potential contributions to the university community, including diversity in its broadest sense. 3. Documenting the decision-making process to ensure transparency and accountability. 4. Being aware of and mitigating potential biases, including personal preferences, external pressures, and preconceived notions about applicant groups. 5. Consulting with colleagues or supervisors when faced with complex or ethically ambiguous situations. 6. Prioritizing the long-term goals of the university, such as academic excellence, student success, and a diverse and inclusive learning environment. Question 9. The performance metrics show a significant and unexplained drop in a student's engagement and submission quality in a core course during the latter half of the semester, raising concerns about potential academic dishonesty or a severe decline in understanding. Option A. Assume the student is struggling and offer additional tutoring resources without formally investigating the performance drop, as direct confrontation might discourage the student. Option B. Advise the student to withdraw from the course to avoid a failing grade, without exploring the root cause of the performance issues or adhering to formal university procedures. Option C. Report the student to the Academic Integrity Committee for immediate disciplinary action based on the observed performance metrics alone, without further investigation or student consultation. Option D. Initiate an immediate review of the student's submitted work for plagiarism, and contact the student to schedule a meeting to discuss the observed performance decline and potential academic integrity concerns, following the university's established investigation protocol. The correct answer is D. Initiate an immediate review of the student's submitted work for plagiarism and contact the student to schedule a meeting to discuss the observed performance decline and potential academic integrity concerns, following the university's established investigation protocol. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical realities of student performance and the potential for external pressures. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting performance data not just as numbers, but as indicators of potential underlying issues that require a nuanced, ethical, and procedurally sound response. Adhering strictly to Anderson University's established academic policies and relevant Indiana state educational guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented investigation that prioritizes fairness and due process for the student. This means gathering all relevant information, including the student's academic record, any submitted work, and potentially seeking input from instructors, while ensuring the student is informed and has an opportunity to respond. This aligns with the principles of academic fairness and the procedural requirements often mandated by university policies and state educational regulations, which emphasize transparency and the right to a hearing or explanation before any punitive action is taken. The focus is on identifying academic misconduct or significant academic deficiency through established channels, not on making assumptions or enacting immediate sanctions based on incomplete data. An incorrect approach would be to immediately assume academic misconduct and impose a penalty based solely on the performance metrics. This fails to uphold the principle of innocent until proven guilty and bypasses the university's established disciplinary procedures. It also risks alienating students and damaging the university's reputation for fairness. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the performance metrics entirely, assuming they are simply a reflection of student effort or ability. This neglects the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards and to identify and address potential issues that could impact the integrity of its programs or the success of its students. Such an action could also be seen as a failure to uphold institutional responsibilities outlined in university policy and potentially in state educational oversight guidelines. Professionals should approach such situations by first consulting the university's official academic integrity policy and any relevant student conduct codes. They should then follow the prescribed procedures for investigating academic concerns, which typically involve collecting evidence, documenting all interactions, and providing the student with clear communication about the concerns and their rights. The decision-making process should be guided by a commitment to fairness, accuracy, and adherence to established institutional and regulatory frameworks, ensuring that any actions taken are proportionate to the findings and are supported by clear evidence. Question 10. The investigation demonstrates that an admissions committee member at Anderson University, Indiana, has reviewed an application for a prospective student. The applicant has a strong academic record, but has submitted a letter of recommendation from a former employer rather than an academic source, and there is a minor discrepancy in the reported dates of employment on their resume. The university's entrance exam guidelines emphasize a holistic review process, but also require all submitted documentation to be complete and verifiable. The committee member is unsure how to proceed given these minor deviations from the typical application profile. Which of the following actions best aligns with Anderson University, Indiana's entrance exam guidelines and professional best practices for admissions? Option A. Request clarification from the applicant regarding the letter of recommendation and the employment date discrepancy, and consult university policy on acceptable alternative documentation and handling minor discrepancies before making a decision. Option B. Immediately reject the application due to the incomplete documentation and unusual recommendation source. Option C. Grant an exception to the documentation requirements for this applicant based on their strong academic record, without seeking further information or formal approval. Option D. Admit the applicant without further investigation, assuming the discrepancies are minor and do not significantly impact their qualifications. The correct answer is B. Immediately reject the application due to the incomplete documentation and unusual recommendation source. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance academic integrity with the university's commitment to fair and transparent admissions processes, as outlined by Anderson University's internal policies and general principles of educational accreditation. The core difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the university's stated admission criteria when faced with an applicant whose profile, while strong, deviates from the typical applicant pool and raises questions about the completeness of their submitted documentation. A careful judgment is required to avoid both undue leniency that could compromise standards and undue harshness that could unfairly penalize a deserving candidate. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the applicant's file, seeking clarification from the applicant and relevant university departments, and making a decision based on the established admission criteria and any permissible exceptions outlined in university policy. This upholds professional integrity by ensuring that decisions are evidence-based, transparent, and consistent with Anderson University's stated academic and ethical standards. It respects the applicant's right to a fair evaluation and protects the university's reputation. An incorrect approach that involves immediately rejecting the applicant without further inquiry fails to uphold the principle of a fair and thorough review. It risks overlooking a potentially strong candidate due to an incomplete understanding of their qualifications or circumstances, violating the spirit of equitable admissions. Another incorrect approach, which is to admit the applicant without addressing the documentation gaps or seeking clarification, compromises academic integrity and could set a precedent for laxity in admissions standards. This could lead to issues with accreditation or internal quality control. A third incorrect approach, which is to arbitrarily grant an exception without a clear policy basis or documented justification, undermines the fairness and consistency of the admissions process and could be perceived as favoritism, damaging institutional trust. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and procedures, thorough documentation of all steps in decision, and a commitment to fairness and transparency. When faced with ambiguity, the process should involve seeking clarification, consulting relevant stakeholders or policy documents, and making a reasoned decision that aligns with the institution's mission and values. Question 11. The analysis reveals that a prospective student applicant has been flagged for potential academic misconduct during their previous educational institution, with the evidence currently being reviewed by Anderson University's admissions committee. The committee is under pressure to meet enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year, which approach best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for Anderson University's entrance exam process. Option A. Inform the applicant of the allegation and allow them to withdraw their application to avoid further scrutiny, thereby protecting the university's enrollment figures. Option B. Initiate a thorough review of the academic misconduct allegation according to Anderson University's established academic integrity policies, ensuring due process for the applicant, and make an admission decision based on the findings. Option C. Proceed with the admission of the applicant while deferring the review of the academic misconduct allegation until after enrollment to avoid impacting recruitment numbers. Option D. Immediately deny the applicant's admission based on the preliminary flag for academic misconduct without a full investigation. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the admission of the applicant while deferring the review of the academic misconduct allegation until after enrollment to avoid impacting recruitment numbers. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to balance the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of student recruitment and retention. The core tension lies in how to address potential academic misconduct without undermining enrollment targets or creating an overly punitive environment. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the university's policies are applied fairly and consistently, while also considering the broader impact on the student body and the institution's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to Anderson University's established academic integrity policies and procedures. This approach is right because it upholds the fundamental ethical principle of academic honesty, which is crucial for the credibility of any educational institution. By following established procedures, the university demonstrates its commitment to fairness and due process for all students. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation that educational institutions maintain academic standards and address violations transparently and equitably. The focus is on evidence-based decision-making and adherence to institutional guidelines, which are the bedrock of responsible academic governance. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate enrollment figures over investigation would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the university's academic integrity policies, which are designed to ensure the value and legitimacy of degrees awarded. Ethically, it represents a compromise of core academic values for short-term gain, potentially leading to a decline in the overall academic quality and reputation of Anderson University. It also fails to provide due process to the student accused of misconduct. Another incorrect approach that involves immediate disciplinary action without a proper investigation is also professionally unacceptable. This violates the principle of due process and can lead to unjust outcomes. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of fairness and impartiality, potentially damaging the trust between students and the institution. It also fails to gather sufficient evidence to support any disciplinary measures, making the university vulnerable to challenges and undermining its commitment to a fair and just academic environment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the alleged violation and the relevant university policies. Second, initiate a fair and impartial investigation process, gathering all necessary evidence and providing the accused student with an opportunity to respond. Third, consult with relevant university officials or committees responsible for academic integrity. Finally, make a decision based on the evidence and in strict accordance with established policies and procedures, ensuring that the outcome is both just and consistent with the university's commitment to academic excellence. Question 12. Market research demonstrates that prospective students at Anderson University, Indiana, are highly influenced by perceived career outcomes and program prestige. An admissions team is developing marketing materials for a new interdisciplinary program. The program has some unique strengths, but also faces challenges in demonstrating clear, immediate post-graduation employment pathways compared to more traditional majors. The team is considering how to best present this program to attract a strong initial cohort. What is the most ethically responsible approach for the admissions team when creating marketing materials for this new program? Option A. Downplay the interdisciplinary nature of the program and focus on a single, more traditional-sounding aspect to make it appear more familiar and therefore more appealing to a broader range of students. Option B. Focus exclusively on the prestige of the faculty involved and the cutting-edge curriculum, implying strong job prospects without providing specific data or addressing potential employment challenges. Option C. Emphasize the innovative and forward-thinking nature of the program, highlighting faculty expertise and unique research opportunities, while acknowledging that specific career paths may be less defined, but offer long-term potential for adaptability in emerging fields. Option D. Create a narrative that strongly suggests guaranteed high-paying jobs upon graduation, using testimonials that may be cherry-picked or not fully representative of the average graduate's experience. The correct answer is C. Emphasize the innovative and forward-thinking nature of the program, highlighting faculty expertise and unique research opportunities, while acknowledging that specific career paths may be less defined, but offer long-term potential for adaptability in emerging fields. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a university's desire to attract students and the ethical obligation to provide accurate and unbiased information. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can tempt individuals to misrepresent program strengths or downplay weaknesses, which erodes trust and can lead to student dissatisfaction and potential regulatory scrutiny. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and honesty in all communications. This means accurately representing the Anderson University Indiana's programs, including their strengths and limitations, to prospective students. This aligns with ethical principles of integrity and fairness, and also with general guidelines for educational institutions that emphasize truthful representation of academic offerings and outcomes. Providing a balanced perspective ensures that students can make informed decisions aligned with their academic and career aspirations, thereby upholding the university's reputation and fostering long-term student success. An incorrect approach would be to selectively highlight positive aspects of a program while omitting or downplaying any potential drawbacks, such as lower-than-average job placement rates for a specific major. This constitutes a misrepresentation of facts, violating ethical standards of honesty and potentially misleading prospective students. Such an action could also lead to violations of consumer protection laws related to advertising and marketing of educational services, which require truthful and non-deceptive practices. Another incorrect approach would be to exaggerate the career prospects or earning potential associated with a particular degree program without providing concrete, verifiable data. This is a form of deceptive advertising, which is unethical and can have legal repercussions. Educational institutions are expected to provide realistic expectations to students, not inflated promises that cannot be substantiated. A third incorrect approach would be to pressure admissions counselors to use high-pressure sales tactics or to withhold information that might deter a student from enrolling. This undermines the student's autonomy and right to make an informed decision. It also creates an environment where ethical conduct is compromised for the sake of enrollment numbers, which is detrimental to both the individuals involved and the institution's long-term credibility. Professionals in university admissions and marketing should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core ethical principles at play, such as honesty, fairness, and respect for autonomy. They should then consider the relevant university policies and any applicable Indiana state or federal regulations governing educational institutions and advertising. When faced with a conflict, the guiding principle should always be the best interest of the prospective student, ensuring they receive accurate and complete information to make a well-informed decision. This involves a commitment to transparency, even when it might present challenges to enrollment goals. Question 13. To address the challenge of demonstrating a nuanced understanding of the provided case study on community engagement initiatives at Anderson University, which approach best reflects the university's commitment to ethical scholarship and authentic applicant assessment? Option A. Focus on identifying any potential biases or subjective interpretations within the case study, and construct an argument that critiques the methodology or presentation of information, rather than directly answering the question about effectiveness. Option B. Prioritize crafting an answer that aligns with what might be perceived as the university's preferred outcomes or values, even if it requires interpreting the case study in a way that is not fully supported by the provided text. Option C. Consult online forums and academic databases to find pre-existing analyses or common interpretations of similar case studies to inform the response, aiming to present a well-researched and widely accepted viewpoint. Option D. Directly analyze the provided case study, synthesizing the information to answer the question about the effectiveness of the initiatives based on the data and descriptions presented, while adhering to the prompt's specific requirements. The correct answer is D. Directly analyze the provided case study, synthesizing the information to answer the question about the effectiveness of the initiatives based on the data and descriptions presented, while adhering to the prompt's specific requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate not only an understanding of academic concepts, but also the ability to apply them within the specific context of Anderson University's admission policies and ethical guidelines. The challenge lies in discerning which approach aligns with the university's stated values and regulatory framework for admissions, which prioritizes academic integrity and fair evaluation. Careful judgment is required to avoid misinterpreting the spirit of the admission process or engaging in practices that could be construed as unethical or a violation of university policy. The correct approach involves a direct and honest engagement with the provided materials, focusing on synthesizing the information to answer the question as posed. This represents best professional practice because it adheres to the implicit contract of academic honesty and demonstrates the applicant's capacity for critical thinking and accurate interpretation, which are core values of Anderson University. Specifically, this approach aligns with the university's commitment to academic integrity, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated on their own merits and understanding, as outlined in their admissions handbook, hypothetical reference for exam context. An incorrect approach that involves seeking external, unauthorized assistance to formulate an answer would represent a significant ethical failure. This undermines the principle of individual assessment and violates the university's policy against academic dishonesty, as detailed in their student conduct code. Similarly, an approach that attempts to infer or guess the expected answer based on perceived institutional biases rather than direct engagement with the provided material demonstrates a lack of critical thinking and an unwillingness to engage with the task as presented, potentially violating the university's commitment to objective evaluation. An approach that focuses on superficial or irrelevant aspects of the provided text, rather than addressing the core of the question, fails to demonstrate the analytical skills the university seeks, thus not meeting the standards of academic rigor expected. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first thoroughly understanding the prompt and the context provided. Then one must identify the core task and the constraints or guidelines given. The next step is to evaluate potential approaches against these requirements, considering ethical implications and adherence to established policies or principles. Finally, selecting the approach that most directly and honestly addresses the prompt while upholding integrity and established standards is crucial. Question 14. The review process indicates that applicants for the Anderson University Indiana entrance exam are expected to demonstrate a nuanced understanding of the provided texts, rather than simply recalling information. Considering this, which approach to answering a question about the socio-economic factors influencing historical events would be most aligned with the exam's objectives? Option A. Identifying and using the most sophisticated vocabulary from the text to describe the historical period, regardless of whether the terms are fully understood or relevant to the specific question asked. Option B. Selecting a single, isolated quote from the text that seems relevant and presenting it as the complete answer, without further elaboration or connection to the broader question. Option C. Synthesizing the author's main arguments about economic disparities and their impact on political unrest, and then applying this synthesis to explain a specific historical event mentioned in the text, citing textual evidence. Option D. Focusing on the chronological order of events as presented in the text and briefly summarizing each event without analyzing the underlying socio-economic causes or consequences. The correct answer is C. Synthesizing the author's main arguments about economic disparities and their impact on political unrest, and then applying this synthesis to explain a specific historical event mentioned in the text, citing textual evidence. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate not only an understanding of academic concepts, but also the ability to critically evaluate information and apply it to a specific context, which is a core competency assessed in university entrance exams. The challenge lies in discerning the most appropriate and well-supported response when presented with multiple interpretations or approaches to a problem, particularly when the prompt is designed to test nuanced understanding rather than rote memorization. Careful judgment is required to identify the approach that best aligns with the principles of academic integrity and the specific requirements of the Anderson University Indiana entrance exam. The correct approach involves a thorough analysis of the provided academic material, identifying the core arguments and evidence presented, and then synthesizing this information to form a coherent and well-reasoned response that directly addresses the prompt. This demonstrates an ability to engage with complex ideas, critically evaluate information, and articulate a clear position, which are essential skills for academic success at Anderson University. The justification for this approach is rooted in the fundamental principles of academic rigor and the purpose of entrance examinations, which are to assess a candidate's preparedness for higher education. By focusing on the substance of the material and the prompt, the applicant showcases their analytical capabilities and their potential to contribute meaningfully to the academic community. An incorrect approach that relies solely on superficial similarities to previously encountered material without deep comprehension fails to demonstrate genuine understanding. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the intended assessment of critical thinking and analytical skills, which are implicitly governed by the exam's design and purpose. Ethically, it represents a lack of intellectual honesty by attempting to present unearned knowledge as genuine insight. Another incorrect approach that focuses on identifying the most complex-sounding terminology without understanding its application demonstrates a misunderstanding of academic discourse. This is a failure to meet the exam's implicit regulatory requirement of demonstrating meaningful engagement with the subject matter. Ethically, it is misleading, as it suggests a level of understanding that is not present. A further incorrect approach that prioritizes brevity over substance, offering a concise but underdeveloped answer, fails to meet the implicit expectation of providing a sufficiently detailed and well-supported response. This is a regulatory failure, as it does not adequately demonstrate the applicant's ability to articulate complex ideas. Ethically, it can be seen as a lack of effort and commitment to providing a comprehensive answer. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first carefully dissecting the prompt to understand its specific requirements and the underlying academic concepts being tested. Then, one should engage deeply with the provided material, identifying key arguments, evidence, and potential counterarguments. Finally, the response should be constructed to directly address the prompt, demonstrating a clear understanding, critical analysis, and well-supported reasoning, ensuring that the answer is both accurate and comprehensive, reflecting genuine academic engagement. Question 15. What factors determine the most appropriate approach to evaluating an applicant's potential for success at Anderson University, considering both academic qualifications and alignment with the university's mission? Option A. An evaluation heavily influenced by the applicant's family's alumni status and their potential to contribute financially to the university. Option B. A comprehensive assessment of academic records, extracurricular activities, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, weighed against Anderson University's stated admissions criteria and institutional values. Option C. A selection process that prioritizes applicants who demonstrate a clear interest in a specific, high-demand program, regardless of other aspects of their application. Option D. A primary focus on standardized test scores and GPA, as these are the most objective measures of academic preparedness. Correct answer is B. A comprehensive assessment of academic records, extracurricular activities, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, weighed against Anderson University's stated admissions criteria and institutional values. Explanation. This scenario presents a professionally challenging situation because it requires an applicant to balance the university's stated mission and values with the practical realities of admissions, potentially leading to conflicts of interest or perceived unfairness. Careful judgment is required to ensure the admissions process is both effective in selecting suitable candidates and ethically sound, adhering to Anderson University's established guidelines. The correct approach involves a holistic review of the applicant's profile, considering academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and recommendations, all within the framework of Anderson University's stated admissions criteria and any specific Indiana state regulations or accreditation standards that might apply to university admissions. This approach is ethically justified as it promotes fairness and equal opportunity by evaluating candidates on multiple dimensions, aligning with the university's commitment to a well-rounded student body, and adhering to any applicable non-discrimination policies. It also reflects best practices in admissions, which aim to predict student success and contribution to the university community. An approach that solely prioritizes academic metrics without considering other aspects of the applicant's profile would be ethically flawed, as it could unfairly disadvantage students with strong potential who may not have had access to the same academic opportunities. It fails to recognize the diverse pathways to success and the broader definition of merit that many universities, including Anderson University, aim to cultivate. An approach that is overly influenced by external factors, such as the applicant's socioeconomic background or personal connections, without a clear, documented rationale tied to the university's mission or stated admissions policies, would be ethically problematic. This could lead to perceptions of bias or favoritism, undermining the integrity of the admissions process and potentially violating principles of equal treatment. An approach that disregards the applicant's stated interests and goals, focusing only on what the university might perceive as a better fit, without considering the applicant's own aspirations, would be professionally unsound. It fails to respect the applicant's agency and the fundamental purpose of higher education, which is to support individual growth and development. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the university's mission, values, and specific admissions criteria. This framework should include a systematic evaluation of all submitted materials, a commitment to consistent application of standards, and a process for addressing any potential biases. Transparency in the admissions process and adherence to ethical guidelines are paramount to maintaining public trust and ensuring a fair and equitable selection of students. Question 16. The monitoring system demonstrates that a significant number of applicants for the Anderson University, Indiana entrance exam are accessing preparatory materials from a third-party website that has been flagged for potential data security vulnerabilities. Which of the following represents the most ethically and professionally responsible approach for the university to take regarding this observation? Option A. Continue monitoring the situation without any immediate action, assuming that applicants are responsible for their own online security choices. Option B. Immediately block access to the flagged website for all applicants and inform them of the security risks, while also recommending official university-approved preparatory resources. Option C. Discreetly monitor applicant activity on the flagged website to gather more information about the extent of the vulnerability and potential data breaches before taking any action. Option D. Issue a general advisory to all applicants about the importance of data security when using third-party websites for exam preparation, without specifically naming the flagged site. The correct answer is B. Immediately block access to the flagged website for all applicants and inform them of the security risks, while also recommending official university-approved preparatory resources. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for comprehensive student data with the ethical and legal obligations to protect that data and ensure its appropriate use. The university's entrance exam context implies a focus on admissions, academic advising, and student support services, all of which involve sensitive personal information. Careful judgment is required to ensure that data collection and monitoring practices are transparent, secure, and aligned with student privacy rights and institutional policies. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent communication strategy. This entails clearly informing prospective and current students about the types of data being monitored, the specific purposes for which it is being collected, e.g., admissions review, academic success tracking, resource allocation, and the security measures in place to protect this information. This approach aligns with principles of informed consent and data minimization, ensuring that students understand how their data is being used and have confidence in the university's data handling practices. This is ethically sound and aligns with general principles of data privacy that are often codified in university policies and may be influenced by broader educational privacy regulations, even if not explicitly detailed for this specific exam. An incorrect approach would be to assume that all collected data is automatically permissible for any use without explicit student awareness or consent. This could lead to a breach of trust and potential violations of privacy expectations. Another incorrect approach is to implement monitoring without clear, documented policies and procedures for data access, retention, and deletion. This creates vulnerabilities for data misuse and unauthorized access, which is ethically problematic and could expose the university to reputational damage and potential regulatory scrutiny, even under general institutional guidelines. A third incorrect approach is to collect data that is not directly relevant to the stated purposes of monitoring, violating the principle of data minimization and potentially infringing on student privacy unnecessarily. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough review of existing university policies on data privacy and student information. It should also include consultation with relevant stakeholders, such as the IT department, legal counsel, and student affairs administrators, to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations and ethical standards. A risk assessment should be conducted to identify potential privacy concerns and develop mitigation strategies. Finally, clear and accessible communication with students about data practices is paramount. Question 17. The assessment process reveals that a highly qualified applicant for Anderson University possesses strong academic credentials, but also comes from a socioeconomically disadvantaged background with unique life experiences that have shaped their perspective. The admissions committee is tasked with evaluating this applicant, considering both their academic potential and their potential to contribute to the university's stated goal of fostering a diverse and inclusive learning environment. Which of the following approaches best reflects a responsible and ethical evaluation process within the framework of Anderson University's admissions guidelines? Option A. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's file, weighing their academic achievements alongside their background, experiences, and demonstrated potential to contribute to the diversity of the university community. Option B. Admit the applicant primarily due to their background and unique experiences, as this directly fulfills the university's diversity objectives. Option C. Defer the decision until further information can be gathered about the applicant's specific contributions to diversity initiatives they may have been involved in. Option D. Admit the applicant solely based on their academic metrics, as this is the most objective measure of their preparedness for university-level study. The correct answer is A. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's file, weighing their academic achievements alongside their background, experiences, and demonstrated potential to contribute to the diversity of the university community. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an admissions committee member to balance the university's stated commitment to diversity with the need to maintain academic rigor and adhere to established admissions criteria. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying these potentially competing values in a way that is fair, equitable, and compliant with Anderson University's internal policies and any relevant Indiana state or federal higher education guidelines that might indirectly influence admissions practices. Though the prompt specifies focusing solely on the university's framework, careful judgment is required to avoid both tokenism and the exclusion of qualified candidates who contribute to a diverse learning environment. The correct approach involves a holistic review that considers the applicant's background, experiences, and potential contributions to the university community alongside their academic achievements. This approach aligns with the university's stated goal of fostering a diverse student body. Recognizing that diversity encompasses more than just academic metrics, it allows for the consideration of how an applicant's unique perspective, shaped by their background, can enrich classroom discussions and the broader campus experience. This is ethically sound as it promotes inclusivity and recognizes the multifaceted nature of student success. It also aligns with the principle of fair evaluation by not solely relying on a single metric, an approach that prioritizes academic metrics exclusively, disregarding the applicant's background and potential contributions to diversity, fails to uphold the university's stated commitment to a diverse student body. This could be seen as a failure to implement the university's own stated values, potentially leading to a less vibrant and representative student community. An approach that suggests admitting the applicant solely based on their background to meet a diversity quota, without a thorough assessment of their academic preparedness and potential to succeed at Anderson University, would be ethically problematic. This could undermine academic standards and potentially set the student up for failure, which is not in the best interest of the student or the university. It also risks being perceived as discriminatory or unfair to other applicants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly understanding and prioritizing the university's stated mission and values, including its commitment to diversity and academic excellence. 2. Applying established admissions criteria consistently and fairly to all applicants. 3. Engaging in a holistic review process that considers all relevant aspects of an applicant's profile, including academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and demonstrated potential for contribution to the university community. 4. Consulting with other members of the admissions committee and seeking clarification on policy interpretation if ambiguity exists. 5. Documenting the decision-making process to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 18. Quality control measures reveal a minor but consistent discrepancy in the scoring of a specific section of the Anderson University, Indiana entrance exam for a small cohort of applicants who took the exam on a particular day. This discrepancy, if unaddressed, could lead to a slight, unintentional advantage for these applicants. The university's examination policy emphasizes absolute fairness and adherence to standardized scoring procedures for all candidates. What is the most ethically and procedurally sound approach to address this discovered discrepancy? Option A. Immediately report the discrepancy to the admissions committee and the Office of Academic Affairs for investigation, and to determine the appropriate university-wide response according to established policy. Option B. Inform the affected applicants of the scoring discrepancy and allow them to choose whether to have their scores re-evaluated or to proceed with the current scores. Option C. Discreetly adjust the scores of the affected applicants to align with the intended scoring, ensuring no one is disadvantaged. Option D. Overlook the discrepancy, as it is minor and unlikely to significantly alter admission decisions for the majority of applicants. The correct answer is A. Immediately report the discrepancy to the admissions committee and the Office of Academic Affairs for investigation, and to determine the appropriate university-wide response according to established policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressures that could compromise fairness. The university's commitment to a rigorous and unbiased entrance exam is paramount, and any deviation from established protocols, especially those designed to ensure fairness and prevent undue advantage, undermines this commitment. Careful judgment is required to navigate the ethical considerations of student welfare, institutional reputation, and adherence to examination regulations. The correct approach involves a transparent and systematic review of the identified quality control issue, adhering strictly to Anderson University's established examination policies and ethical guidelines. This means documenting the discrepancy, reporting it through the appropriate channels, e.g., the admissions committee or the Office of Academic Affairs, and allowing the designated authorities to investigate and determine the appropriate course of action. This approach upholds the principles of fairness, equity, and academic integrity by ensuring that all applicants are evaluated under the same, predefined conditions. It prioritizes the integrity of the examination process over any potential individual benefit or external influence, aligning with the university's responsibility to maintain a credible admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the discovered discrepancy. This failure directly violates the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation. It creates an environment where some applicants might receive an unfair advantage, thereby devaluing the efforts of other students and the credibility of the entrance exam. Furthermore, failing to report such issues can lead to a breach of trust with applicants and the wider academic community. Another incorrect approach would be to unilaterally decide to adjust the scoring or re-administer the exam for a subset of students without proper authorization or a clear, university-wide policy. This bypasses established procedures and could be perceived as biased or arbitrary, potentially leading to appeals and further damage to the university's reputation. It also fails to involve the necessary stakeholders who are responsible for maintaining the integrity of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to transparency, adherence to established policies, and a clear reporting structure. Professionals should first identify and document the issue. Then, they must consult the relevant university policies and ethical codes governing examinations and admissions. Next, they should report the issue to the appropriate authority within the university, providing all necessary documentation. Finally, they should await and follow the decision of the designated body, ensuring that any resolution is applied consistently and fairly to all affected parties. This structured approach ensures that decisions are made ethically, legally, and in the best interest of the institution and its applicants. Question 19. System analysis indicates that an applicant to Anderson University, Indiana, has listed a significant academic award on their entrance exam application that, upon initial review, appears to be inconsistent with their stated academic history. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university admissions? Option A. Forward the application to a disciplinary committee for immediate investigation and potential sanctions without first contacting the applicant. Option B. Immediately reject the application due to the suspected inconsistency to maintain the integrity of the admissions process. Option C. Proceed with the application, assuming the applicant's statement of the award is accurate to avoid causing undue stress to the applicant. Option D. Request the applicant to provide verifiable documentation of the award and seek clarification on its context before making a final decision. The correct answer is D. Request the applicant to provide verifiable documentation of the award and seek clarification on its context before making a final decision. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of academic integrity and the ethical implications of misrepresenting qualifications. The university entrance exam is designed to assess genuine aptitude and preparedness, and any attempt to circumvent this process undermines the fairness of admissions for all applicants and the integrity of the institution. Careful judgment is required to identify and reject dishonest practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves directly addressing the applicant's misrepresentation by requesting clarification and evidence of their claimed achievements. This aligns with the principles of fairness and due diligence expected in admissions processes. Specifically, it upholds the regulatory framework of academic admissions, which mandates verification of applicant credentials and adherence to ethical standards that prohibit deception. By seeking verifiable proof, the university ensures that its admissions decisions are based on accurate information, maintaining the credibility of its entrance exam and the academic standards of Anderson University, Indiana. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves overlooking the discrepancy and proceeding with the application as if the information were accurate. This fails to uphold the university's responsibility to verify applicant information, potentially admitting unqualified students and compromising academic standards. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty and a breach of trust with other applicants who are being evaluated fairly. Another incorrect approach is to immediately reject the application without further inquiry. While decisive, this lacks due process and may unfairly penalize an applicant who may have a legitimate explanation or a simple misunderstanding. The regulatory framework often implies a process of investigation or clarification before final adverse decisions are made, especially when potential for error or misinterpretation exists. A third incorrect approach is to accept the applicant's statement at face value without any attempt at verification, assuming good faith. This is a failure of due diligence and opens the door to fraudulent applications, undermining the integrity of the admissions process and the university's reputation. It neglects the fundamental responsibility to ensure that all admitted students meet the stated requirements. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions should employ a systematic approach that prioritizes verification and fairness. This involves establishing clear procedures for reviewing application materials, identifying potential discrepancies, and implementing a process for addressing these discrepancies. This process should include seeking clarification from applicants, requesting supporting documentation, and having a clear policy for handling cases of suspected misrepresentation. The decision-making framework should be guided by institutional policies, ethical codes of conduct, and the overarching goal of maintaining academic integrity and fairness in admissions. Question 20. The performance metrics show a significant and unexplained drop in a student's grades in a particular course, raising concerns about potential academic misconduct. According to Anderson University, Indiana's established academic integrity policies, what is the most appropriate initial step to address this situation? Option A. Ignore the performance metrics as they are not definitive proof of misconduct and could be due to various factors unrelated to academic integrity. Option B. Immediately contact the student to discuss the performance metrics and inquire about any extenuating circumstances that might explain the drop, while informing them of the university's commitment to academic integrity. Option C. Issue a formal warning to the student regarding the performance drop, citing the metrics as evidence of potential academic dishonesty and place them on academic probation. Option D. Forward the performance metrics directly to the university's legal counsel for an immediate review and potential disciplinary action. Correct answer is B. Immediately contact the student to discuss the performance metrics and inquire about any extenuating circumstances that might explain the drop, while informing them of the university's commitment to academic integrity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of student retention and institutional reputation. The performance metrics, while indicating a potential issue, do not definitively prove academic misconduct. A hasty judgment based solely on these metrics could lead to unfair accusations and damage to a student's academic future, as well as the university's standing. Careful judgment is required to ensure a fair and thorough process. The correct approach involves initiating a formal inquiry process that respects due process and allows the student to respond to any allegations. This approach aligns with principles of fairness and academic integrity, which are foundational to any educational institution. Specifically, it adheres to the spirit of academic regulations that presume innocence until proven guilty and mandate a clear procedure for addressing suspected misconduct. This process ensures that decisions are based on evidence and established university policies, rather than assumptions or incomplete data. An incorrect approach that immediately imposes sanctions based on performance metrics alone fails to uphold the principle of due process. This bypasses the necessary steps to investigate and verify allegations, potentially leading to wrongful accusations and disciplinary actions. Such an action would violate the ethical obligation to treat students fairly and could contravene university policies designed to protect students' rights. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the performance metrics entirely without further investigation, also presents ethical and professional failures. While it avoids premature judgment, it neglects the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards and address potential breaches of integrity. This inaction could allow academic misconduct to persist, undermining the value of degrees awarded by the university and failing to uphold its commitment to academic excellence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the observed data, performance metrics. 2. Consult relevant university policies and procedures regarding academic integrity and student conduct. 3. Initiate a preliminary fact-finding stage to gather more information and assess the situation without making assumptions. 4. If warranted, proceed to a formal investigation process that includes informing the student of any concerns and providing them with an opportunity to respond. 5. Base any final decision on verified evidence and established policies, ensuring fairness and consistency.